Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and today we're going to be repotting my Itoigawa juniper. So this is the juniper that we're going to be working on here today. It's beautiful Itoigawa. This tree has featured in 2 of my other videos so far. And if you'd like to check out the playlist of this tree, I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video. And if you're pretty new to bonsai and you don't really know much about the Itoigawa, it's a very specific genus of juniper tree that has a lot of desirable traits for bonsai, such as being a very vibrant green color. It has a much more dense growth pattern than other junipers, and it backbuds really well. So it's a very desirable tree for bonsai, and they can be quite expensive also. Today we're not going to be working on the top of this tree. All we're going to do is work on the roots. And the tools that we will be using today are a root rake, some root pruning shears, branch cutters or root cutters if you have a pair, a chopstick, some wire cutters, and a pair of gin pliers. So I'm going to be doing the repotting in this big massive drip tray just to catch all of the soil so I don't make a mess. Now the reason for repotting today is that I feel that this is getting a little bit pot bound and the water isn't able to efficiently penetrate through the soil to reach all of the roots. So to really see what's going on, I'm going to take these root pruning shears and just cut the pot. Yeah, I can see the roots are quite bound. Just peeling it off now. I'm not really worried about destroying this pot as it's a cheap soft plastic one. At least the roots are still wet and the water is penetrating, but it is getting very pot bound in here. Now with Itoigawas, it's good to keep in mind that you don't want to remove any more than 1/3 of the roots at any time, or the foliage of the tree could revert back to that juvenile spiky growth. If this happens, I'm not too worried, but I would like to maintain that nice cord-like foliage. So my goal is to just loosen the soil without tearing through that many roots. Very compact here though. Instead of switching to a root rake like this, it's quite big for this tree, I'm going to grab a bent fork. Just like an ordinary kitchen fork, this seems to do a better job. When raking at a tree, it's very important that you rake away from the trunk, like directly away from the trunk, and rotate the tree as you go. Because if I'm here and I want to start raking the roots over here and I start dragging it this way, the roots will then begin to wind around, and I don't want that. I want all of the roots to fan out radially and evenly distributed from the trunk. So that's why it's important to rotate as you go. Now I'm going to take the tree and turn it on its side. And whenever you rake on the bottom of a bonsai, similarly to the top, raking away from the trunk, I'm going to hold it here and rake away from the middle. And I'm also just going to keep rotating the tree and raking outward. And this helps untangle the roots without tearing as much of them. And because this is so compact, it's inevitable that you will tear a few roots in your process of loosening up the old soil. So long as you don't remove too much, it's okay. But with stuff that's extremely pot bound like this, it does take quite a bit of work. It is also extremely important in bonsai to keep a spray bottle of water nearby when you're repotting a tree so that you can just mist the roots so that they don't dry out. You see, if you're working on the roots and it's windy, or even if it's a hot sunny day, the water could evaporate off the roots, and if the roots get too dry, the roots will die. But so long as you keep them moist with a spray bottle, they'll be quite fine. So I've loosened up quite a bit of the soil now, still nowhere near halfway yet, but just as a tip, if you're trying to loosen soil in a tree that is very pot bound, the action that you use with your hand to jab at the roots is, as I said, a jab like this. You're not tearing and tearing and tearing and tearing, because you'll just end up with no roots. I think the substrate that this is in is pure Akadama that has now broken down. It has the same color and texture as Akadama. I don't want to use a root hook on this today, as I feel that it would be too harsh just sort of hacking away at these delicate roots. That's why I'm just using a chopstick today. I have more control over what I'm doing. There's always a very satisfying moment when working on a pot-bound tree when everything suddenly kind of loosens up. And I'm at that stage now where the soil is starting to fall a little bit. I can come in from the side and jab it there just to loosen the soil that's further up. Could also come in from the bottom, as long as I don't tear through the roots. after some time, I'm getting to the point where I can wash the roots just to really see what's going on with them. I've loosened quite a lot of the soil, and I feel like if I were to dip this in some water, all the soil would really just loosen up and fall off. All right, so got this little basin of water. I'm gonna give this a dunk. Seems to be doing the trick. So now that it has removed the majority of it, I'm just gonna give it one final blast with a hose. So this is the roots that we have to work with now. All of the old soil is removed. And now the roots that I'm going to remove today are probably only going to be the very thick ones. They're taking up space where I would like new fine feeder roots to grow. And these little fine feeder ones here are what feed the tree and provide nutrients to the foliage and to uptake water. The thick ones here are more for stability when it's in the ground, and they don't feed the tree quite as much as the fine fibrous ones. So these ones here, I feel, are quite thick. So I'm going to remove it here. This one here is also quite thick, so I'm just going to chop that there. This particular root here has some fine fibrous roots on the end, but it is winding around the trunk, and if I let this stay any longer, it can thicken and sort of strangle all the root ball when it thickens up. So for now, I'm just going to remove it here. See here, there's like a root dying. I think that's from lack of moisture. Let's just reduce some of these on the underside. So I think at that, that's all I'm going to remove. It's somewhat flat on the bottom. We've got a nice kind of radial spread going on, but I'm going to be patient and really give it a refinement maybe every 2 or 3 years to slowly get it better and better. So these are the roots that I have removed from the Itoigawa today. It's about 1/3 of the overall mass. And today I'm going to be potting this tree into a pond basket. Pond baskets look like this. They've got lots of holes all over them. They're usually used to put lilies, I think, in the bottom of a pond, and you can put the soil and seeds and stuff in the basket. The holes help the water get in. But in bonsai, a pond basket will actually provide lots and lots of oxygen in the sides to the roots. And the more oxygen the roots get, the more they can grow better. And also, when the roots reach the edges of the pond basket, instead of being inside a pot where it will hit the wall and then bend and curl and circle the inside of the pot and drive you crazy when you repot it, because there's holes all over it, when the root reaches the edge, instead of bending and winding around, it comes out one of the little holes and then shrivels up because there's no moisture outside the pot. And this promotes more subdivisions of the roots inside for lots and lots of root growth. And this is known as air pruning, where it reaches the air and it almost prunes itself. So the wire that I'll be putting in the pot today is just 2mm. I think in bonsai, 2mm is probably the most used millimeter of wire, as it's so versatile. It's always good to measure the wire first, so I want it to come up to maybe here, go across, and maybe come up to here. Cut that with the wire cutters. So I've added wire going across one way, and I'm going to add wire going the other way. And I'm pushing the wire down on the bottom end here so that it bellows into the pot, so that when I sit it on a surface, it's nice and flat and the wire doesn't make it sit up and rock. And the soil mix that I will be using today is a mix of pumice, akadama, and lava rock. This is a really nice free draining bonsai soil mixture. The pumice holds quite a lot of water, and so does the akadama. And the lava rock is mostly for drainage, but the pumice and the akadama hold just enough moisture so that the tree doesn't dry out, but also provide just the right type of drainage. And it's a medium grit, so it's maybe 4 to 5mm in particle size. So let's see here, how will this sit in the pot? Do I want it raised up more? I think by having it deeper in the pot will promote more lateral roots out around here. If I have it higher, then it will promote more roots underneath because there's more space there. So I think I could even go a little bit deeper with this, but I don't want it so deep that the branches on the lower end here will hit the lip of the pot. And I'm also considering the planting angle. Do I want the tree forward, backward, maybe to the side? I'm just going to have it nice and straight because that's the angle that I have wired the branches for and I think looks the best. But in the future, if I decide to change it, I don't think there would be any problem in that. So let's get this wired in. I'm going to bring these wires across, being careful not to squash any of them nice roots. Just going to tie this in. Once you snip these wires and come in with the gin pliers, you can get it nice and tight. I would like to work in some of the soil underneath, just to help with the angle. I'm going to grab the gin pliers and then pull up and twist. And I'm going to come with the other pieces of wire across this way. So I am really satisfied with how this is sitting in the pot at the moment. If you wish to, you can sieve the fines out of your soil before doing this, but I find that whenever I water the tree, the fines all run out the bottom of the pot. So instead of mixing the sphagnum moss throughout the soil as I would usually do, instead I'm going to take a little bunch here and cut up a fine layer. I just want to spread it across all of the surface. And this just helps keep moisture levels up as the tree begins to push out new roots and get healthy again. But as soon as I see signs of life on the top of the tree and it starts pushing out more shoots, I'm then going to come in and remove all of this moss. Because if I leave it here too long, we'll get lots of moisture in the top here and it may start sending out roots higher up that I don't want. So I might actually leave a little gap with no moss close to the trunk. And of course the sphagnum moss on top here has a lot of antifungal, antibacterial properties. And I guess it will benefit the soil and the tree each time it's watered. Some of it will go down. This is my first time using sphagnum in this way. So if you guys have done this in this way, let me know your experience with it in the comments below. And on that, I'm going to end off this video right here. Although I would like to say as a side note that you shouldn't really work on the foliage and the roots of a juniper in the same year. Maybe you would repot one year, then the following year come back and prune the foliage. I personally felt that it was okay to give this tree a repot this year, and it desperately needed it because it was super pot bound. Although if you're doing this on one of your trees and it's not super pot bound, or even if it is super pot bound, work on the roots one year and then the following year come back and fix the foliage. Please let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. If you have any tips for me or if there's anything that you would do differently, I'm always open to new ideas. If you would like to support me and the things that I do on the channel, you can hit the thanks button down below this video. And if you would like to stay up to date with the things that I do off camera, please follow me on Instagram. It's @NotionBonsai, and you'll be able to see all the pictures and things that I do on there. But on that, thank you so very much for watching. Look at it. I'm so happy with how this is looking right now.